All right, so I just dropped off my son at school this morning. It's his last week of school. Popped in here for the car wash. Got a couple of minutes before it opens, so I thought I'd just throw together a film on one of my favorite topics, Section 8. Especially why we prefer Section 8 housing to just standard leases. Now, I say standard. The primary difference is one is subsidized, one's unsubsidized. But that gets straight into the core of things. The number one issue is the rent is subsidized. It's anywhere from 25% to 75% of the rent is paid, in some cases 100% is paid by the government, your local Section 8 housing authorities. But with that said, you know, if a tenant is working, and I mean, there's a lot of things changing in our markets and our economy. It's become more and more difficult for families to afford housing, to afford groceries, to afford electricity. I mean, just the basics. When a tenant becomes injured or they lose their job, if they'll report that to the housing authority will adjust their the amount they're paying based upon the money they have available. And very often they'll pay 100% of their rent. The number two issue would be, in my mind, is they stay longer. In general, tenants tend to stay in a property for about 3 years. When they're on the Section 8 program, it's almost double that, like 6 years. And that's because it's challenging to find a home that suits their needs and that will accept the program. I mean, because if your tenant doesn't stay in there for 3 years, you're really not making any money because your costs for turnover and all that stuff. But if they're staying for 6+ years, I mean, you're getting great return there. The number three issue is I see people as people. I don't see any difference in the tenants themselves. There's no difference between Section 8 tenants and tenants that don't have financial assistance paying their rent. You do your own screening. You figure out if you want them in your home or not. Obviously, you need to follow the Fair Housing Act if it applies to you. I believe that's if you've got 3 or more properties. But you need to do what's good for your business. And there's no telling. You know, there's no... You can't judge that a Section 8 tenant's going to be better or worse for your home for any reason. You should evaluate their credit score. You should evaluate their rental history. You should evaluate all of the things that go into getting a good tenant in your home. Those don't change when you're dealing with Section 8. It's still you that decides who comes into your property. So keep that in mind. Treat all of the people the same, you know. Annual inspections. I'm sure you probably know Section 8 does a inspection when they move into the house. They do an inspection on an annual basis. And they're there making sure that the house meets minimum standards. And I mean, we're talking minimum standards. You should strive for your property to exceed minimum standards. So having an extra set of eyes on your property is not a bad thing. Even properties that don't get like Section 8 subsidy, we still inspect those houses on an annual basis to make sure that they are being taken care of the way they should be taken care of. So it shouldn't be viewed as a negative. Number 5 is move out conditions. So when a Section 8 tenant moves out of a property, they've got to be signed off and cleared by you to move on to another property. You're essentially releasing them from that property. Now, there's a conditional release, obviously. If, once their lease is out and they've moved out, you're conditionally approving that you will clear them. You do your walkthrough, you send any charges through, you give them a copy, you give the housing authority a copy, and they make sure you get paid. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Obviously, your security deposit is there for that purpose as well. So, but it's again another insurance policy as to why I view Section 8 as a positive. So these are just a few reasons why. I'm sure you've got your own experiences, pluses, minuses. I'd love to hear your, perhaps you've got some other points of a positive or some negative. I'd love to hear your feedback.